I live in a village in the middle of the English countryside. To paint an accurate picture of its size, it has a population of 4,000. But it feels closer to 1,000 due to its spread-out nature and being surrounded on all sides by lots of fields, farms, and woods that eventually connect onto a pretty famous forest. Having lived here all my life, I know the place like the back of my hand. I know where all the public footpaths through the woods and fields are, where they connect, and also all the shortcuts. I've gone on walks in this area throughout my childhood with parents and alone as an adult. Nothing bad had happened, so I felt safe here. This story took place last summer in July after I moved back home from university, had yet to get a job, and smoked a lot of weed. A habit my parents despised and which I tried to keep hidden from them by going for evening walks with multiple pre-rolled joints hidden away in my hoodie pocket. As usual, they both got home at 5 p.m. We had dinner but chatted for a while longer than usual as my mom had had quite a hectic day and was telling me about it. Because of this, I ended up heading out for my walk an hour later than routine, at around 7 p.m. But as it was summer, the sun was still shining, so honestly, the fact that it would start getting dark while I was still out didn't cross my mind. The woodland closest to my house is less than 5 minutes away, and you can enter through a gate into a farmer's field. You can see across the open area quite far until the first set of small woods obscures your view. That's where I was heading, as I knew this track takes under 2 hours and leads back onto the same path I was standing on now. More than enough time to smoke the 3 joints in my pocket, and for the smell to leave my clothing, I had thought. This entire area is very popular for dog walkers, so it's not unusual to see other people while you're about, and as this is a village where everybody says hello to everybody. I lit my first joint and started walking. I was in my own world for a while until I was less than 100 feet before the entrance to the woods. An elderly man was walking towards me, throwing a ball for his collie dog. I finished my joint and stubbed it out. As I got closer, I recognized it was John, who lived close to me and knew my grandpa. We stopped and made small talk. While talking, I see another man coming out of the woods. No dog, bright green jacket, very tall, and had a good 10 years on me age-wise. Me and John chat another minute and say goodbye. He warns me not to stay out here too long as it will start getting dark soon. The sky was bright pink and orange, so the sun was indeed beginning to set. I continued on down the path towards the man. When we were nearly passing each other, I look up to make brief eye contact, smile and say hello, like everyone here does, even if you don't recognize the person. My eyes instantly met his. He was already looking at me. His dark eyes locked on mine. He wasn't smiling. I didn't know him at all, but I knew something was wrong. It was in his eyes. I swallowed my politeness and looked at the ground as we passed. I had lived in city for the past couple years, so I knew a red flag when I saw one, and I instantly tensed. I quickened my pace a little, and before entering the woods, slyly looked back. The guy was still walking in the same direction following John. I felt relived, laughed, cursed the weed for making me paranoid while lighting up another joint and started walking into the woods. It takes about 30 minutes to follow the path through the woods to the end. The pathway exit opened into another field that led to another set of woods. The sky was now violet, the dimming light having been obscured to me by the trees. I was already smoking my last joint and was near the entrance to the second set of woods when I felt it. Fear. Complete, crippling, absolute fear worked its way like electric through every layer of flesh. I'd never felt anything like it before or since, but I knew what it was. I whipped around. Standing at the exit of the first set of woods was the man. I could still make out his green jacket in the fading light. He was coming back and was walking fast. I had looked back several times while in those trees, and he hadn't been there. For a second I froze, as did he. He knew I'd seen him. To sprint the distance between us would take him about 5 minutes, and he was obviously in good shape. I threw the spliff and bolted into the woods. It was the only way I could go. I didn't dare look behind me. I sprinted for a couple minutes before taking a sharp left turn off the path into the trees. I was hoping to throw him off a bit, but I couldn't see a thing. The light was already darkening and the trees made it 100 times worse, especially as I was now in the thick of them. Their branches were catching on my clothes like fingers, whipping and scratching my bare legs so bad that I began to bleed. I ran and ran, my lungs protesting in pain, hating me for smoking so much while my heart was throwing itself against my rib cage trying to escape. I couldn't carry on. I threw myself on the ground behind a particularly thick trunk, my back against it, knees to my chest, hand thrown over my mouth to stifle my labored breathing, desperately trying to pump air into my lungs for the next sprint. I listened for the first time. A few seconds passed silently. Then I hear him, heavy footfalls snapping twigs behind me and about 20 feet to my left. I dare not look in case he sees me. I have my phone, but know I have little chance of signal being where I was, and knew he'd either hear me talking or see the light from the display. I'm not ashamed to say that at this point I started to cry, the tears falling silently down my cheeks. "What the heck?" I hear a deep voice exclaim, "Where are you? I know you're here. I saw you." I have to clasp both hands across my mouth to stop my scream escaping. I can hear him moving around. I panic, and I find enough courage to slowly peek from behind the tree. He was about 10 feet behind me, less than 20 feet to the left, with his back to me. I move back, and my eyes search the area around me. I pick up a pretty heavy rock. I carefully check on him again. His back is still turned, but he's searching through the trees, hunched down lower to the ground now. I make a snap decision, and with everything I had left, I threw the rock behind me and to the right. It clattered through the branches of the trees and made one hell of a noise. I watched him immediately bolt in its direction, laughing. He effing laughed. I paused a little, hearing his footsteps get quieter until I thought I wouldn't be so visible to him if I moved and threw myself forward. I ran, trying to put as much distance between us as possible, but I was also aware that I was getting further and further away from home. I knew there had to be a stream somewhere close. If I found the stream, I could follow it as it borders the land and ran parallel to some of the footpaths. I ran and ran until the trees finally cleared and I could just make out another field on the other side of the forest. I thanked God and pushed myself a little bit further, keeping my eyes on the field. I'm finally out of trees when suddenly the ground disappears from below my feet and I go head over shoulders down the stream embankment. I crash into the water below, my open mouth and lungs filling with muddy water. As I splutter it out, I feel both relieved to have found the stream and terrified he's heard me. I knew my phone was now completely ruined, so calling for help was no longer an option. I slowly make my way downstream as quiet as possible, listening out for him the whole time as the stream borders the woods, looking up periodically just in case. After a while, maybe half an hour, I noticed the trees begin to thin out and realized this is the edge of the woods where I would have been exiting, and where the pathway connected to the original one I had started on. If I ran, I could get home in less than 20 minutes. As quietly as I could, I dragged myself on my stomach back up the embankment. "You effing B," came a screech from across the field. I swear my legs nearly gave out then and there. He had been waiting for me. I turned my head and saw him sprinting out of the woods at full pelt. I screamed and pushed myself further, tears coating my face. All I could do was run. I crossed into the main field now and I could see the moonlight shining off the metal gate. My house was just 5 minutes away after that. I have never focused on anything as much as that gate. He was faster than me and getting closer, screaming at me the whole time about how he was going to slit my throat. I ran and ran, pushing myself up and over the gate and ran up the road. I looked back as I made the turning from my road. He was still following me. I raced up my driveway and threw myself through the door, running into the living room, crying and screaming hysterically, pointing behind me towards the door. My dad ran outside while my mom grabbed a hold of me as I collapsed, shaking. As it turns out, my parents had already called the police. I said I was going out for an hour or so at 7, and it was now past 12 a.m., and I hadn't answered any of their calls. This was very unlike me. We called the police again to explain what had happened. They came, and I gave a full statement. Both my parents and the police were horrified. Nothing like this happens here. There hasn't been a reported murder in the last 100 years. But one look at me, and it was obvious I was telling the truth. I was covered head to toes in cuts and bruises, soaking wet and covered in mud and blood. I won't go into how this experience changed me. It's depressing. But I will say the thing that scares me the most is that they never even had a suspect. Despite him following me so closely, he was gone by the time my dad ran outside. that guy is still out there. And who knows what he is really capable of.
Watch another if you dare.